Hello everyone, welcome to this live broadcast of the CGIAR research program on climate change, agriculture and food security. We are live from the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI, in Nairobi, Kenya. My name is Vivian Atakos. I am a communications specialist for East Africa, for CCAF's East Africa. By my side is Catherine Mungai. Catherine Mungai is a partnerships and policy specialist for CCAF's East Africa. Well, in line with this year's International Women's Day theme, which is Step It Up for, which is Planet 50-50, stepping it up for gender parity, Catherine is going to share some of key lessons that came out of her research that she undertook in Western Kenya. So Catherine's research was on adoption of climate smart agriculture through a gendered intersectionality lens. She's going to share experiences from Western Kenya. Welcome, Catherine. Are you able to tell us some of the objectives of your research?
Thank you very much, Vivian. I'm looking forward to sharing more during our chat. So basically, I would like to mention that this research was undertaken through the Circle Fellowship. Circle Fellowship was funded by the DFID, and there was a lot of focus on building the capacity of female researchers, which is very, which is in keeping with our theme for International Women's Day, because we need to also look in the field of science where we have a shortage of women. So the fellowship focuses on African researchers, and there's a strong emphasis on female researchers. So now back to my study. Like you mentioned, I carried out my study in 2015 in Nyando. Nyando is one of the CCAF's climate smart villages, which are research areas that have been set up to undertake research on the different climate smart technologies and practices that farmers are taking up. And there's a strong emphasis on working with women. 60% of the farmers that CCAFS is working with are women. So basically the objectives of my study, one was to look at which climate smart agriculture technologies and practices are farmers adopting, and secondly, to apply a gendered intersectionality lens to find out what factors are hindering or supporting the uptake of CSA technologies. So by this I mean that I used different lessons such as age, education, marital status, and to find out which CSA practices are being taken up by the farmers in our study area.
Well, I must say it's quite an interesting study, and going by the objectives, the findings should be interesting as well. So Catherine has just shared that her study was conducted in Western Kenya, which is one of CCAF's climate smart villages. She also briefly touched on the composition of men and women in the climate smart villages. But for more information about these climate smart villages, I'd encourage you to check out our website, which is ccafs.cgiar.org. All right, so Catherine, once again, let's get back to you. What are some of the findings that came out of this study?
Yes, it was a very, very interesting study to undertake. One, because CCAFS has been working in these climate smart villages together with these farmers from 2011. Yes. And during this time, CCAFS and partners, ranging from research institutions, NGOs, the private sector, have introduced different climate smart interventions to the farmers, and so it was interesting to find out what kind of technologies and practices are the different farmers, one, adopting, and two, if they're not adopting, what are some of the what are the factors that are hindering the uptake of these technologies. So basically, when we use the gender lens, you find that women, the female and male farmers are taking up different kinds of technologies as long as they're aware about it. But when we use the education lens, for example, you find that those farmers who have primary school education, secondary school level of education, have a higher probability of taking up some of these practices. This is because they have access to information, and also that they are able to interpret this information that is coming from the agricultural extension, and also from papers and also other media such as TV. When we use the marital lens, for example, this lens helps us to see how what is the adoption rate among single women who are married and living alone, or women and men who are married and living together. So you find that there's a high uptake amongst married couples who are living together, and this can be attributed to the fact that the couple can share information. For example, if the woman goes to what we call the chama or these informal meetings, she can come back and share with the husband what she learned from her fellow female farmers. And also there are some spaces you find that are reserved for men, for example in the marketplace where livestock is being sold. So when the men go to these spaces and when they get this information, they can come back and share it together in this family setup. So we find that there's a high uptick among married couples that are living together. When we look at social cultural practices, this is also a very important lens to use, because it helps us to see what are some of the practices, social cultural practices specifically, that are challenging or that are supporting the uptake of CSA technologies amongst farmers. And that is why we chose to undertake this study in Nyando, because we find we have two different communities, that is the Luo and the Kalenjin, and these two different communities have different interests in terms of the kind of food they eat, in terms of the kind of livestock that they're interested in keeping, in terms of the land sizes that they have, in terms of the climate challenges that they're facing. So using this social cultural lens also helps us to see, to find out the differences between the female farmers in Nyando and the female farmers the female farmers among the Kalenjin and the female farmers among the Luo. Are there any differences or are there any similarities? So we're still in the process of reviewing and analyzing the data coming from the field, but it's very interesting to apply this lens.
Yeah, indeed, it's quite interesting. So in line with this year's vision for stepping it up for gender parity, what do you see from your research as some of the implications for policy?
Well, first I would like to mention that in terms of policy, Kenya is in the process of developing the Climate Smart Agriculture framework program, and also a policy on the same, and also we have the climate change policy and bill which are about to be passed. So it is important to undertake these kinds of studies so that they can inform the implementation of policy, and mainly to ensure that as even we implement, or as we encourage farmers to take up climate smart agriculture technologies and practices, that this do not enhance or make women or young people face more challenges, rather that these technologies should enhance or should improve their livelihoods of the farmers, regardless of whether they are women or men. So using this intersectionality lens helps us to, it's very sophisticated, and it helps us to find out how can we develop targeted interventions that are going to ensure that there's gender parity amongst the farmers that we are working with in the climate smart villages.
Well, I must say that's a very informative study. For the rest of the audience, thank you so much for joining us. I just want to remind you that more information is actually available on our website, www.ccafs.cgir.org, and feel free to engage with us via our various Twitter handles. We have one for CCAFs Global, which is at CGIAR Climate, and for the East African Regional Office, we are at CGIAR Climate _ East Africa. Thank you once again for joining us. This has been Catherine presenting, and also Vivian, and we are live from the International Livestock Research Institute, ILRI, in Nairobi. Thank you very much.
Thank you.